Good morning, everyone. As we have folks that start to filter in here, and I admit folks into the Zoom. Welcome. My name is Donna Dostal, and I'm the president and CEO of the Potawatomi County Community Foundation. And we are pleased and honored to provide you with this opportunity to ask questions about the latest round of PPP funding and supportive emergency funding through the CARES Act, correct? I want to make sure that it's still the CARES Act. And then EIDL questions that you guys might be able to answer those as well. So yeah, Zoom is telling me that you guys are ready to go. So as we just kind of let folks filter on here, welcome. We do ask that you probably should put yourself on mute for right now. We will have plenty of time for questions. In addition, we are recording this session so that we can send out a link and it will live on our website. And then also we'll send it over to Sue and Dave so that you guys can filter it out to your contacts as well as you need to. But once again, my name is Donna Dostal. I am the president and CEO of the Potawatomi County Community Foundation. And we are excited to be providing this webinar for you, our nonprofit partners, our small business partners, whoever it is that needs to ask questions, get the best possible answers, and have access to subject matter experts in order to make sure that you're making the proper decisions, the decisions that are right for your organization regarding this latest round of PPP funding and emergency funding for small businesses and nonprofits. Once everybody, I'm going to give everybody just a few minutes. It's 9:01. I'll give them one more minute to kind of filter on, and we'll admit people as they come in. Just so that you know, you can change the different views. I'm sure most of us are familiar with Zoom right now, considering we're about 9 months into this adventure. But if you do not know how to do it, you can change up in your right-hand corner or in the boxes or the menu items that are at the bottom of your screen. You can click participants. You can change the view so that you can just see the speaker. You can also see the speaker lined up and kind of a gallery view of all the participants. We ask that you put questions into the chat box for right now. Everyone is going to be on mute for right now. And if you do have questions, you can raise your hand. You can clap when we introduce Sue and Dave because they're amazing. And we're very grateful for them to be here today. Once again, my name is Donna Dostal. I am the president and CEO of the Potawatomi County Community Foundation. We are excited to support our nonprofit partners, our philanthropic leaders and philanthropic spirit in Potawatomi County and Southwest Iowa. So, and are honored to be able to provide this resource to you to be able to ask questions and be right in the same room with subject matter experts very close to this initiative. So with that, I'm excited. And so be sure and put yourself on mute as you're coming on. Once again, we are recording this and we will be sending out a follow-up email that has a link to this video, or to this Zoom conference, along with recordings of the questions and everything like that. So just in case you don't, of someone who really should have been on here but couldn't, you can forward it on, or if you want to reference questions going forward. So I'm very excited to introduce our subject matter experts today to talk about this latest round of PPP funding. Today with us, we have Sue Pitts. Sue is with Iowa Western Community College, the Small Business Development Center. She's the regional director for that center and works with the SBA. She's going to talk a little bit about who they are and what they do in just a second. Sue has actually shared with me that she's been with Iowa Western Community College since 2004. Thank you very much for all that you do, Sue. That's a great long time. We're glad to have you with us today. And then Dave Wise he is the Senior Vice President of Business Banking at TS Bank. TS Bank is certainly a wonderful community partner and philanthropic leader in the Southwest Iowa area and in several communities throughout the region. And so we're very pleased and grateful for you to spend time with us today, Dave. So let's start with Sue really quickly. And if you would, and I am happy to give you control of this. Hold on just for a second. We don't want me to share. We want to give you control. Hold on a second. I'm gonna be able to share your, can
I think I can.
you share it?
I think so.
All right, good. So Sue's gonna take over from here. Thank you, Sue, for being here this morning.
Okay, sounds good.
Donna, did you want to start the recording?
It is
It doesn't
recording
look like-
now.
Oh, is
Yep,
it?
it
Okay,
is.
great.
And let me just reiterate that if you have questions, you can type them in the chat. We also have a list of questions that were submitted in advance that we provided to our speakers. So hopefully your questions will be answered in their conversation today. So sorry, once again, Sue Pitts.
Hi. So how Dave and I usually do this is I kind of go through a quick PowerPoint outlining the things that we get directly from SBA. And then, as Dave calls himself, he's the color commentator. So he will kind of add on as we go through it. So Dave, do you want to introduce yourself quickly before we start, or do you want me just to jump in?
Yeah, so I'll just introduce myself. So I run our business banking and ag group in Iowa for TS Bank. Wanted to first thank PCCF for inviting us today and see a lot of familiar faces out here. We're very excited to partner with such great organizations in the community to provide this service. We went through a big crush of PPP the first go around. I think, we've got it pretty well figured out. I would say, this is recording right now, but this information is accurate as of January 15th, 2021 at 9:05 a.m. If we learned anything from the first go around, things do change, policies change, and the program does get tweaked from time to time. So just make sure that you're working with the latest information available to you.
Okay, so I will go ahead and start sharing my screen and just kind of start with it. Oh, nope, I can't. I guess I can't share my screen, Donna. I thought I could. Can you give me control? You're on mute.
Yes, I should. I just made you a co-host. As a matter of fact,
Okay.
I'm going to make Dave a co-host as well.
Okay.
So you should be able to start sharing.
Okay. So do you, oh, whoops, wrong one. Sorry. Thought I was sharing screen two. Sometimes, do you see the PPP and EIDL or the Zoom screen?
PPP and EIDL, you see the.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yep.
It doesn't show that on my screen. It's sometimes PowerPoint is weird with Zoom. So now I can't. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm Sue Pitts, Regional Director of the Small Business Development Center. My colleague is Michael Mittler. What the SBDC is, so I'm kind of going to compare SBA versus SBDC. SBA is our federal funding source. We also have local and state funding. We're not SBA, but we're a resource partner with them. So during COVID and disasters and things like that, we become boots on ground for them. So because they don't have enough workforce to handle all the questions. So we get all of the first updates along with the banks. So that is what kind of qualifies me for doing this. But we are not SBA. So I have to clear that up a lot because I get calls like, you guys are not giving me my loan. And we don't do that. So, but we do help as much as possible. So we usually work with small businesses and startups, but during COVID, the CARES Act did give us the go ahead to be able to work and count our hours with nonprofits for anything related to COVID. And that could be PPP, EIDL, or just helping them pivot and refocus and things like that. So I wanted to let you know that you guys can, any nonprofits can call us anytime for anything. And we are a free technical service provider. And most of the time, a lot of times we help directly, but a lot of times we just know who to send you to as well. So this is, like Dave said, this is official information as of this second right now. So Instead of like downloading documents, I think the tape is good, but also going back to this site and just checking the official information and the changes that have been made. I think, I don't know, Dave, we've had like 6 changes come through in the last 2 days. So it's just watching that and making sure you get the most accurate information. So first I'm going to talk about first draw PPP in this new act, and it is CARES Act, but what came out is economic aid. So it was kind of revising what the first draw is. So first draw is for any, so the PPP is reopened. So anyone that has not gotten the PPP can go ahead and reapply for that. In the PPP, I think this time around, they did add some new nonprofits, including 501c6, local news media organizations, and housing cooperatives. So the first PPP is very much the same as the last one with the same rules. The first round PPP, second round, everyone's hearing that you have to show a 25% loss, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But if you are a 501c6 or have not applied, the first round does not need to certify a 25% loss. So that's kind of what's different. So let's see.
I would also
Go
add
ahead.
one of the big changes. I know this is a nonprofit focused presentation, but a lot of us are involved in ag and agriculture. With some of the changes to the first round PPP, farmers and a lot more ag producers and farmers are now eligible because income is now based upon gross income, not net profit shown on the 2019 Schedule F. So this change in the act opens it up to a lot of farming operations that were not eligible last time. So food for thought, if you do know any farmers that did not get CARES Act PPP funds the first go round, they probably are eligible this go round.
So, okay. So the allowable uses of PPP funds, and this is for first draw and second draw. I have the same slide when I talk about second draw. So it's the same funds that are same uses last time, except they've added. So the same ones are payroll, mortgage, interest, rent, and utilities. They did add certain operation expenditures. The only details I have there is they detail it out as payment for software, cloud computing that facilitates the business operations like payroll, delivery, bookkeeping, etc. There may be more in there, but that is the only verbiage I saw. I don't know why they just didn't call it software or cloud computing instead of operation expenditures, and that's why there might be some other uses, I'm not sure. And that probably will come out. I know that's a question that's buzzing around SBA chat circles, like, can it be all operation? So we'll see about that. But the only clarification they have is that software or cloud computing, which actually covers a lot. Property damage cost that happened during riots, etc., that is not covered by insurance. They also added supplier costs essential to operations like inventory. If it is non-perishable, it would cover costs that with a contract order in effect before the cover period. If it's perishable, before or during. And then the last added one is worker protection expenditures, and that is for social distancing. That's a pretty broad subject and covers everything from like anything that would protect workers and help them social distance. So anything from shields to a new drive-through. So that is pretty open. But payroll costs still need to include 60%. Or I'm sorry. Payroll costs should be 60% of what you spend that in order to be forgivable. So if all those monies are spent 60% on payroll and all of the other listed eligible expenses, these loans will be forgiven. it is, you should keep track of the payroll costs, just keep really good bookkeeping. And you should not have a problem with forgivable or the forgiveness. And I'll talk about the last round in forgiveness. Dave actually will talk more about that. I'll give that over to him at the end of this.
So I would add, we had a question yesterday on this presentation about your previous slide there, Sue, and employee retention. So there was a question about, last year, pre-pandemic, employee numbers were X, and they haven't been able to sustain pre-pandemic employee figures. What the SBA is looking for is that you retain where you're at now. So you don't have to go back to pre-pandemic levels, but when you get that PPP loan, that's used to retain your existing staff, so that you don't have a continued drop off on there. So if you had questions about that, that's what the SBA means by retaining your employment levels.
Good point. So if they're not forgiven, it is a loan, but like I said, if you keep good paperwork and spend it on those eligible expenses, it will. If any portion of it isn't, it is an interest rate of 1%. So if you get a loan now after June 5th, it would be a maturity of 5 years. And loan payments are deferred for, I think, 10 months. But if you use it for those eligible expenses, the forgiveness has been simplified, especially for loans under 150,000 and less. So it's not, as long as you're keeping that good paperwork. So so again, who's eligible is small businesses, nonprofits, 501c3, 501c19, and added is the 501c6, local news media organizations and housing cooperatives. And again, with this first draw, because it wasn't so clear until like the last couple days that there was a definite division between first draw and second draw. The first draw does not need to have that 25% loss. So in here, there's a link, and if you go to SBA, I would say don't download the application until you're until you're going to do it that day, and download it from SBA. Here's the link is right here, but if you just go to SBA site, it's very easy to find. And applications are accepted until March 31st. Money is limited, so getting that done as soon as possible. I think, Dave, why don't you talk about that?
So I would say, so the applications, we at the bank have started accepting applications. Now, crossing our fingers, today is the first day that banks with asset size less than $1 billion are able to start submitting those applications to the SBA. So we anticipate that there will be some kinks, just like last time, everybody trying to log on to the same system at the same time and submitting applications, that we think that it'll be a slow rollout. I would say that there hasn't been the same amount of crush of applications as we had the first go round when PPP was first initiated. That being said, I wouldn't wait. Definitely start putting together your information and apply as soon as possible, whether this is a first draw or a second draw. Do not wait until March 31st because, again, the funds are limited. I don't have the exact number. I've heard numbers anywhere from 250 to 300 billion, somewhere in there. I would say that the application sizes that we're seeing are also smaller this go round. A lot more of the 10,000 to 150,000 applications. A lot of sole proprietors, single employer type of applications would be probably predominantly of what we're seeing. So my message to you would be to apply as soon as possible. Don't put it off, but also manage your expectations that as they continue to roll this out, there may be some kinks, before you get your confirmation and SBA loan number.
So on to talking about the second draw. So the second draw is available for those who did a PPP already in 2020. So you would be in the second draw category. So it's the same general loan terms as the first draw PPP, but there are some differences. Again, same uses, and I think I have another slide of those uses that you can use. And if you use the monies for the eligible uses, they are forgivable again. So I already kind of went through that. It's the same uses as the first draw. So the one thing, and I think it's in another slide, but I think it's relevant to say here, for the second draw, you do need to show a 25% loss from 2019 to 2020. So what they're asking for is one quarter in 2019 compared to the same quarter in 2020. So you can pick your quarters.
So I would add to that, there's a couple of clarifying things. So you can't pick any 3 months. It has to be a fiscal quarter. So it can't be any rolling quarters. And CARES Act proceeds. So if you got a first round PPP, that is not counted towards revenue or earnings when determining eligibility. So if you got a first round PPP and you're considering a second round PPP, you'll notice a couple of differences. One, there was a lot more information that was required up front from the banks for the applications. This time around, they have streamlined the application process. So if you are applying for a second draw PPP loan under $150,000, you will not need to provide that revenue decline information upfront to the bank. You will be required to provide that at forgiveness. So if you are going to apply for a second round, while they may not ask for that information and clarifying information upfront, just know that for that loan to be forgiven, you do need to provide that documentation at time of forgiveness. If you are applying for a loan over $150,000, the bank is required to review documentation showing a year-over-year decline in revenue. And again, that is in any particular quarter from 2020 over 2019.
Yeah, and also, David, you might be able to help clarify this. And I did some research this morning because I know we had some questions. So the verbiage is that any funds from the CARES Act will not count toward, the 25% loss. A lot of nonprofits got some monies from different organizations. Most of those monies came from the CARES Act. So kind of that third party wheel, I believe you don't have to count that as long as those monies somewhere came from CARES Act.
Yeah, if those funds originated from CARES Act, whether you got them directly or from another party, they would not count towards your revenue calculation. So if your normal course of business revenue dropped 25% year over year and you can document that, you would be eligible for a second draw PPP.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is Ramon. Yeah, I like, for example, us, we got a lot of money from different foundations to help people that, didn't get their checks and stuff like that. And so I don't count that because, it shows that our income went up, big time. It doubled our revenue. But that was a washout, that is all gone. And it was used for direct assistance. It wasn't for operations or anything like that.
So as far as I know, what we know is that if it came from a CARES Act, from a grant generated.
This is private foundations, I don't think.
Yeah, if it's private foundation, so Ramon, what I would do is like, if those all hit in one quarter, right? So if you got all those in like the third quarter, I
Yeah.
would look back and take a look at like your second quarter and see what your revenues look like year over year, right? In that particular quarter. So if you,
Probably third quarter. Yeah.
yeah, so if you recognized all those foundation grants in one particular quarter, you know, that I wouldn't look at that quarter year over year. I'd look back at second quarter or fourth quarter to see that you can show, yeah, we received support in this quarter to help us, you know, kind of bridge that gap. And those were private foundations, not CARES Act. But, you know, from, you know, March to June, right, it was really, really tough for us because, you know, things were closed and you know, revenue dried up. So I would just look at each particular quarter year over year. It doesn't have to be a 12-month look.
Okay.
It's whatever quarter you want to pick.
Okay.
Yeah. And we did have that question come up in a SBA meeting on things that may have not originated from CARES Act money, but were intended to help during the pandemic. I know they're looking at it, but as of right now, the answer is no. So your best solution is Dave's solution. But keep an eye out. You know, you never know. But right now, it's unfortunately no.
Did you
So
guys
with-
see the question in the chat where that Chris LaFurla asked, do you need to show a 25% reduction in revenue from all sources, including like gifts in kind? Do gifts in kind and stuff like that count in that revenue reduction? Do they need to report reduction in line item revenue resources or gross revenue?
I would just count if you're looking at just like monetary sources, right? I think it would be too hard to kind of quantify that stuff. I think when you're doing your calculation, just look at like gross receipts from your you know, your normal monetary sources.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really clear for profits, and I think where it becomes unclear is in nonprofits, and there's a lot of buzz around it. So hopefully, there's more clarification. So with the loan calculation, and this goes for people that are doing first draw as well, same loan calculation. Well, maybe not. I'll ask Dave in a minute. But right now, well, I guess it's irrelevant for nonprofits, the restaurant thing. But right now it's so you take your average monthly payroll costs and times that by 2.5. So either in 2019 or 2020 payroll costs. What I was talking about is for round 2 or for second draw, if it is a restaurant or has the NAICS code 72, they are able to do a 3.5 because that was an industry that was hit. I'm not positive if that's in first draw as well.
First draw is the same calculation, 2.5 times monthly payroll. If you are a NAICS code 72, and this is your second draw, you're eligible up to 3.5 times.
So for eligibility for the second draw, it changes just slightly. You need to have previously received the first draw, and then instead of 500 employees, it has to be no more than 300 employees. And then the next change, of course, is what we've been talking about, the 25% reduction in gross receipts. And then money received from CARES Act programs do not count toward gross receipts. And as soon as we find out more about other things, we will get that out. And then again, for application, Dave, do you want to kind of step in there for application? Is it the same story as first draw?
Yeah. So again, kind of talking about, you know, applications, there were CIFs that, you know, were eligible to start submitting application. I would say probably the vast majority of PPP recipients went through a traditional bank the first go around. The portal is being opened today. I have not heard from our ops team how that's going. Hopefully we'll get some information later today. I see a question from the chat from Tim. So 3.5 include bar industries? Yes, it does. So they would have that code. So bars, restaurants, hospitality, hotels, motels, things of that nature would generally have that 72 start at the beginning of it. So they would be included in that.
Yes. So again, the application is available at SBA. And again, I would go there on the day that you're applying because of changes and things like that. So the forgiveness, Dave, you want to jump into forgiveness?
Yeah, again, kind of, so if you have an existing PPP loan, you may or may not have begun the process of forgiveness for that. I would say, TS Bank and the vast majority of other banks have processed some forgiveness applications, and it's gone fairly smoothly. There is kind of qualifications and streamlining in this new act that we're waiting to get guidance on. And so us and many of our other financial institutions have kind of put a pause on the forgiveness piece right now, just because we want to wait to see what is actually required for forgiveness. We're hoping that we're going to continue to see more streamlining for those loans less than 150,000, where it's basically a good faith certification that all of the criteria were met, which will streamline the forgiveness process, and then you would retain that information for if and when your file got pulled for verification of that. So I would just reiterate that on a second draw forgiveness, again, you don't have to prove it up front for loans less than 150,000, but you do need to retain that information and have it available to prove a year-over-year decline in revenues if you want to have forgiveness on the second draw.
Yep, good point. Let's see. So let's just jump into, I think you kind of covered all that.
Oh, Sue, did you want to talk about the covered period? Kind of like the people have had questions about, which the covered period that you can choose, like the 8, 12, or.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So thanks for reminding me about that. So on the application, this time around, you can choose 8 weeks for the covered period, 12 weeks, or 24. We've had discussions that we're not really sure why there's those choices. So we're recommending that everyone just pick 24, because if it's gone in 8, it's good. If it's gone in 12, it's good. But if you pick 8 and you don't spend it all, you're kind of stuck with that 8. So, or 12. So just choose that 24, and then however long it takes you to take, as long as it's within 24 weeks, you're good to go. And that's on the application.
Yep.
For the PPP. So you're determining that on your application. Let's see. So again, just keep in contact with your lender. As Dave said, people are putting it on pause. There's a couple other things that have changed. So in the beginning with PPP, EIDL advances came out, if you recall. And at first, they were not going to interrupt the PPP. So if you got the advance, it wasn't going to be taken off your PPP. And then all of a sudden, it changed. One of those rule changes that just kind of popped up on my screen and surprised me was that they were now going to take out that advance out of your PPP. So now they've taken that back. So now the EIDL will not be taking out of your PPP, including your first draw that you may have taken in March, April, or May. If you have already gotten forgiveness and the EIDL has been taken out of it, we are hearing that is going to be resolved probably through the banks. We don't know how, so just sit tight. You don't really have to do anything. That will, they're going to monitor that and figure out how to refund. But if you haven't done forgiveness, that's another reason why banks are kind of pausing, because of that idle advance will not have to be taken out.
Yeah, and then I would just add that you have to have exhausted your first round PPP
Yes.
funds before you can apply for the second round.
Yes.
And then, so I'm putting into the chat here for Aaron to clarify. So the first round businesses had to pick either an 8 or 24 week. The second round adds that 12-week window in there. Again, I don't know why you would pick an 8 or a 12. It's available to you, but the 24-week gives you kind of the maximum flexibility for that.
Let's see. So the forgiveness forms again are available on the SBA site, and again, they change. So make sure when you are applying, work with your lender and then have them help you figure out which form you fill out. And they are very versed at that. So I'm going to kind of skip through that because we've talked about paperwork. And I talked about the EIDL and the PPP. The other thing about EIDL, and I had a slide on this and I took it out just because it's so up in the air right now. They are talking about, and in the act, they talked about the advance. And again, that advance thing was a little chaotic in the beginning. When it first came out, it was $10,000 advance to every business. And then within 7 hours, they changed it to $1,000 per employee up to $10,000. And now this new EIDL is kind of stepping back on that. So, but there's not enough money to go around for everyone for the 10,000. So they're trying to figure out, they're kind of doing a look back. So some organizations and businesses that are in low income areas, which we don't know how they're defining a low income area yet. There's like 5 different ways. And all of them are rumored, so we don't know. Could be census, it could be low HUD, those kinds of things. So we're just not sure. But anyway, they're going to take a look at that, and some businesses may magically get the remainder of that $10,000 in their accounts. It's going to be kind of that mystical $5,000 showed up in my bank account thing. Hopefully they documented a little more because people just weren't sure what it was. They thought it was a scam. So hopefully, at least says SBA in their line item. It didn't last time. So more on that. Yes.
So my question then is, and it's actually from one of the original questions that we had that were submitted prior to the webinar. Would the EIDL opportunities, would that be something that a nonprofit that maybe doesn't have paid staff could go back and see if they're eligible for? Could it fall under that?
So the advance isn't really open, and that was just a grant that went out. Okay. What is available is the EIDL economic injury disaster loan. Okay. And it is a loan and it is reopened, and that portal's on SBA. So they could go ahead and get in the portal and apply for that, and then they'll find out how much they're eligible for. And that it's a good loan. It's deferred for 12 months. It's 3.5% or 3.9% over 30 years. And so it's pretty good terms. Usually they'll say you're eligible for up to 50,000. So you can take between 1 and 50,000. And when you accept it, you just tell them how much you want, but it is a loan.
Right.
And it's not going to be forgiven.
Okay.
So the advance part, that's not open right now. I kind of have a feeling that if it does reopen, it's going to be a look back for people that have already applied. So it's not going to be an opportunity for people to reapply for, but we'll just have to kind of wait and see.
Okay.
You know how that free money is, it just kind of goes fast. So the last thing I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. There was a webinar on it yesterday, and I think I sent that out. I'm sorry, this is from yesterday. It says webinar today. If you go to sba.gov, the webinar is available there under the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. So it's taped. It was literally 10 minutes. and it read off what was on the SBA page. So it wasn't that useful. And I don't mean to down SBA. I think the reason is when that came out, they didn't know who was going to administer it. And just this week, they decided it's going to be directly SBA disaster. So they're putting together all of the information. So there's more to come there. For now, all we know is live venues, live performing arts organizations, movie houses, and cultural institutions. I've gotten a lot of questions from people that have kind of those types of things. You know, does this fit? Does this fit? It's kind of a little bit of a square peg. So I think it will be more defined and they're going to get better lists. But for now, this is all it says. So be patient on that. Keep checking back, and I will be keep checking back. So if you have questions, you can certainly call me.
Yeah, I see Dana on the call here today. Probably would apply to PACE. So just be thinking about that. More information to come on that. We also had questions about bars that were like live music venues. So they would either qualify, you know, for the 3.5 times or for this. I believe that that 45% gross receipts is just on ticket sales and not like food and alcohol sales on that. But again, more information to come on this shuttered venue operators grant.
And so with that also, do you think it also applies to, well, it says performing arts organizations like American Midwest Ballet and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I'm thinking like Chanticleer, American Midwest Ballet, right? That would fall under kind of the PACE umbrella. Right. That would definitely want to pay more attention to this opportunity.
Very good.
Yeah. And for the bar owner type, it's going to be either PPP or shuttered venue. So it's looking at both calculations and see what weighs out better.
Oh, very good.
So, and again, just reiterating what both Dave and I have been saying, latest information, please go to sba.gov. You can certainly call me anytime. I have my phone number on here and I can help work out anything or look at other programs or get you different resources. So my number is here, and my assistant director, Michael Mittler, is here as well. So if you want to jot down that number, and that's all I have except for questions.
So you really did answer too, I would say the majority of the questions that were submitted in advance, other than, you know, are there opportunities for nonprofits that don't have paid staff other than loan opportunities?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's come up in like our for-profit webinar is like subcontractors and people like that, right? Payroll is payroll, right? And that's what they're basing this on. So if you don't have payroll, there's really no loan amount that you can make off that. I would, you know, explore other options if you don't really have a payroll number in your expenses.
And again, I don't have those options in front of me, but if those individuals call me, I can certainly get them to the right resources and see if there are options for them, or as programs come up.
There was a couple other questions, but you really did answer them. You know, how do you calculate the, you know, the gross profit decline of 25%? And if there's a, you know, if you have to count original PPP allocations. So yeah, you guys were very clear on that. Are there any other questions that anyone might have? It says, here's Tom says, can a cultural institution seek both second round PPP and shuttered venue? It sounds to me like it's either or right now, Sue and Dave.
I don't know, to be honest. Yeah. There's still, they have not released a lot of the information on that shuttered venue program. We were hoping for more information out of that webinar yesterday, but we didn't.
Dave, Jim Rife here. I've heard no, you cannot. You're one or the other is what I've heard.
Yeah.
Okay. And that would make sense to me.
Yeah. And what I've heard is probably one or the other, because they are going to be for the same expenses in the same time period. So that would be double dipping, and that's what they don't want. So I agree with Jim. Everything I'm reading is probably not.
Yeah, and again, I think there was that question that you had emailed Donna about, it does need to be official quarters, not just any rolling
Right,
over 3
any
months.
3-month period within
Yep.
the, right. So yeah, you guys did a great job. Is there any other issue that you guys really want to highlight, or does anyone else on the Zoom have questions? You can certainly unmute yourself and ask. You know, Dave and Sue are great resources. They have, and we'll be sure to provide their contact information on the follow-up email, as well as the link to the recording. Sue, if you want to also provide a PDF of your slides, we're happy to send that out to folks as an attachment as well, so that they can click through and be able to have those links very easily accessible to them.
Sure.
So we're just honored to have both of you here today. Thank goodness you didn't have to drive here. It is amazingly snowy, and for those of you that know me, you know I'm a big snow fan, love it. But I really want, we on behalf of PCCF want to wish everyone lots of safety, and please stay warm and safe. Don't go out today. They're saying don't go out. So I just wanted to go on record and saying that. So thank God for Zoom. If there's nothing else that anyone else has, we're happy to provide you with all that follow-up information. That'll be coming to you from Rachel Moorhead. She's our excellent communications guru. And so in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to connect you to Sue and Dave directly. Okay. So with that, once again, we want to thank Sue Pitts at SBDC at Iowa Western Community College, Dave Wise, Senior Vice President at TS Bank, Business and Ag Banking. So honored to have both of you here today. Such great, knowledgeable experts. Thank you for everything that you do. And we at PCCF wish you guys a safe day today, and hope you all are having a good new year. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.